Lakho mnganwa Lakho mnganwa Lakho mnganwa Lakho mnganwa Lakho mnganwa Omake timpolompo Lakho mnganwa
Hello sanibonani molweni lotshani emakhaya nakuzo zonke izindawo enikuzo. Welcome to YilungeloLakho, it's your right. Mbukeli sakaza buwena bukhoma la kumahamba phambili SABC 1 eMzansi for sure. Igama lami ngo-Alisha intombi yakajali. Mbukeli ukubamba iqhaza ngenkulumo yethu namhlanje. Please call our studio line ku 011 714 6919. Ungasithumela ne-email ku consumer@sabc.co.za. Usithinte ku Facebook Yilungelo as well as on Twitter @Yilungelo. There could be hope for South Africa's more than 7 million over-indebted consumers who have been frustrated by the complex debt review complaints process. About 200,000 of these over-indebted consumers are already under debt review. But challenges in the process have left some of their complaints against debt counsellors and credit providers unresolved. Now, this could all be a thing of the past, as the National Credit Regulator has taken over all these complaints from dedicated bodies, all in an effort to bring about speed and efficiency in the system. Asibukena Nkumbego.
I-debt review uhlelo lokukhokhwa kwezikweletu kancane kancane olwasungulelwa abathengi abacwile ezikweletini. Bacishe babe ngama-20 ezigidi abathengi abanezikweletu. Kanti isishiyagalolunye nengxenye salaba singene shi ezikweletini. Amakhulu amabili ezinkulungwane esikhuluma nje asefakwe ohlelweni i-debt review. Izicelo zokungena kulolu hlelo abathengi bazifaka ehhovisi le-debt counselor. Leli hhovisi liyabe seliyahlolisisa. Uma etholakala ukuthi ngempela umthengi akasakwazi ukukhokha, uyabe sefakwa kulolu hlelo. I-debt counselor iyabe isikhulumisana nabakweletwa umthengi ukuba behlise imali ayikhokha njalo ngenyanga. Uma bevumelana, umthengi uyangena-ke kulolu hlelo, kanti uma bengavumi babuye bafake esinye isicelo. Ukungena kulolu hlelo-ke akusho ukuthi angeke umthengi abone sekungena amasamaniso. Lolu hlelo lumbandakanya nezinkantolo ukuzama ukuvikela amalungelo abathengi. Noma lwenzelwe ukusiza, ziningi izinkinga esezivelile seloko lwasungulwa. Ukungabibikho kokuxhumana ngenkulumo phakathi kwe-debt counselor nomthengi, ukusalela emuva okuningi kwalezi zicelo ezinkantolo, ukungabi nolwazi olunzulu ngalolu hlelo abathengi nama-debt counselors, ukwesulwa kwalolu hlelo abanikezela ngezikweletu umthengi engaze abone ngamasamaniso, abanikezeli ngezikweletu abaphika ukuthola izimali kuma-debt counselors. Abathengi abazithola behlangabezana nalezi zinkinga bayofaka izikhalo zabo ezinhlanganweni i-National Debt Mediation Association nehhovisi le-Credit Ombudsman. Kodwa ngenxa yezinkinga ekuxazululweni kwalezi zikhalo, ihhovisi i-National Credit Regulator isikushintshile lokhu. Leli hhovisi liphuce lezi zinhlangano igunya lokuxazulula lezi zikhalo. Selizibambelelo namathupha nelithi kuzoshesha. Lezi zindaba zamukelwe ngo-elethu abathengi asebenesikhathi belindele ukuxazululela izinkinga zabo. Uzamabuthelezi wohlelo YilungeloLakho eGoli.
Sibonge kakhulu ukuzama ngalo mbiko. And now masishayela ngaphambili ngenkulumo yethu Mbukeli, itsamukele izivakashi zethu. Sinaye uSiskidi Talile Malakalaka yena ongumphathi weze-debt counselling kwa-National Credit Regulator. Sibe naye nobhuti Elias Shamatla ophuma kwa-National Debt Mediation Association. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. If you guys can just please introduce yourselves to our viewers, please.
As mentioned, my name is Kidilatile Malakalaka, stemming from the National Credit Regulator. Our mandate as the National Credit Regulator is to regulate the credit industry, to ensure consumer protection, and to educate consumers on their rights, when it comes to credit. So I'm here today to give an insight to consumers on how best they can use the legislation National Credit Act to their advantage with regards to debt.
Elias.
Okay, I'll see Nike Elias Shamatla, Kitwakele NDMA, National Debt Mediation Association. Rona re ba NDMA, we fill the gaps in the whole process, credit process, from when the consumer takes credit until the consumer has paid off the credit.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
like we are later on consider this and like ways about the payment arrangements and so forth.
Okay. Now, Siskidi, let's start with you. Please tell us more about the current debt review process.
Well, the current debt review process, obviously debt cancelling is a debt relief measure for over-indebted consumers. A consumer will approach a debt counsellor who's registered by the NCR. These are consumers who are experiencing financial problems, they're over-indebted, so they would approach a debt counsellor. And the debt counsellor's role is to actually, mediate in between the consumer and the credit provider in terms of negotiating reduced payments on behalf of consumers. And just to highlight one thing, the NCR has not changed the debt review process. The only thing that has changed in the process is the referral of debt cancelling complaints.
Okay.
Previously, they were referred to associations like NDMA, Credit Ombudsman and Debt Cancelling Association of South Africa. But now all these debt cancelling complaints should be channeled to the NCR. And the reason why the NCR decided on making that decision is for us to provide a regulatory oversight, a direct regulatory oversight on the complaints, because obviously they inform consumer behavior. There are things that we need to look into as the regulator, things like your credit reckless lending. It's through things like complaints where we are able to uncover such things. So the reason why we have taken over is just for us to provide a direct regulatory oversight, especially on the commitments that are also made by credit providers. We also register credit providers. Now, credit providers, they have code of conduct, and in their code of conduct, they undertake to ensure that they will lend credit responsibly. So as the NCR, our mandate is to ensure that, credit is granted in a responsible manner. So we just want to provide that oversight as the regulator, as it is our mandate.
Okay, but Elias, if what necessitated lama changes amasho ukuthi abe implemented ukuthi i-NCR izinsize? What kind of complaints were you dealing with?
Usually it was the complaints regarding like terminations, Motokini debt review, and High debt review I'm paying according to the debt counsellor's proposal. However, credit provider has terminated my application, and then I get summons subsequently. So we found that.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So now, Bamameri about the viewers, but how an almatata. The credit providers the commitments. There are certain things that we will do, and there are certain things that we won't do. Like, for example, harassment of consumers.
Okay.
Yeah, because many people felt that they were being harassed by call center agents of the credit providers.
Debt collectors.
Like for example, while you're under debt review, many consumers don't expect calls from credit providers to say you have to pay so much, because there are arrangements that have been made by debt counselors to say, okay, this is the amount that you're going to pay. Okay, I'm sure Askiri will explain about the PDAs and so forth. And when a consumer, remember, in the first place, you couldn't afford to pay what you have at the moment. So there's a process in place that says there's a PDA, payment distribution agency, that will collect the money from you. Let's say, for example, you earn a salary of 15,000 rand. Your household expenses are 5,000 rand. Or say like 10,000 rand, you're part of the but the total these are 12,000 rand. They are more than children and Leo. So what happens is that counsellor will do a rearrangement proposal to say, okay, let's make 10,000 rand to fit in this. Like, for example, extending the repayment periods on your accounts. Like, for example, credit card, revolve. Overdraft, revolve. How we create a pattern. Understand? Personal loan, it cover 5 years. 5 years, include 20 years, and so forth. So what the debt counsellor will do will extend the repayment periods so that installment how it will.
But what about those complaints with Elias where the right monies did not actually reach the debtors, and it was because of the debt counsellor, so the mediator actually didn't follow through, neither did the consumer? What happens in those cases?
Okay, what happens is that the PDA before, because debt counselling is an illinch in the country. So now consumer was expected to pay the money to the PDA. Some PDAs were taking cash deposits. Consumers, like the viewers, to go and deposit their 10,000 rand into this bank account. You must put my reference number and my ID number as a reference number or as a reference.
Yeah.
When I figure out how to reference, Kenya Ntabising Lesawan. High as a reference. PDO receives for 10,000 rand, has with Zoma. He doesn't know where does the money come from. Understand? So we battle again. So you find that credit providers have actually the payments because of that, because of their own reference, and the consumers don't follow through.
Yeah, so the consumers need to follow through. So Skidi, if you can just add to that as well.
Yeah, he's right in that consumers don't follow through. Consumers hardly under debt review. What we always encourage them. We know when you're debt stressed, if there's someone who says I can help, you know, you don't even think of anything else but to say I'm leaving the load to this person. So that's where the problem starts. Because how a consumer, you need to follow up. You know, if someone is looking over your finances, if you make him payment, you need to know where that money is going to. So the problem with consumers is that they don't follow up. However, yes, there are challenges, as he has mentioned, the issue of reference. Because if a PDA received the funds and they don't know who that funds come from, they are unable to allocate. But if upateti 10,000 rent and hodia fita ukra statement and there's no payment allocated, as a consumer you need to stand up, follow it up. So that's a challenge that we have. But once again, it's key issue of communication between consumer and a debt counselor, because debt counselors are not allowed to receive money directly. That's why we have payment distribution agencies.
Okay, so debt counselors are not supposed to receive their money directly.
Debt counselors are not supposed to receive their money directly, even what we call the restructuring fee, which is their fee that comes to them. All those fees must be channeled through to a PDA, and the PDA will allocate accordingly. So if there is anything that is due to a debt counselor, the PDA will pay the debt counselor directly. So consumers need to be aware that debt counselors are not supposed to... But
how can they also check up if the debt counselor is actually a valid one? I think that's another thing that you guys can comment on.
Yeah, as I've mentioned, we register debt counselors. So upon registration, we issue them with a registration certificate, which is something a consumer needs to check. That's the first thing. When you approach a debt counselor, you need to see a certificate. There is what we call a window decall, annually a sign from NCR. They should place that window decall at the place where they practice. So it's an identification that this is an NCR registered debt counselor. If at any point they are not sure, by all means they need to contact us. We can confirm if they are indeed registered. I'll give our details later.
And to add on to that, baka check our website. How can our website in NCR or tap Yilungelo debt counselor? You can see the details of the debt counselor there.
They're all registered there, so there's no way that anybody can fool you. But then who's responsible? Will NCR or the Debt Mediation Association be responsible if a debt counselor has been known to be receiving monies and not processing them to relevant debtors?
Well, the NCR is responsible to monitor compliance of debt counselors. What we do, we have a team of monitoring officers. By Longhor, they go to debt counselors' place of practice. Firstly, to ensure that they are following the process, because the debt counseling process is very tight. There are time frames there. So the process needs to be completed within a specified period of time. It has to be completed within 60 business days. So now there are phases in the process. Like if a consumer approaches a debt counselor, within 5 days, that debt counselor needs to notify the credit providers or this person is under debt review. So we go out there and monitor compliance.
All right, we'll hold it there. Okwamanje asithi kuya ngaseyitolo kodwa ngaphambi kokuthi senze lokho ithi ngikhumbuze mbukela ukuthi nani phela ningazwakalisa imbono yenu ngokuthi nisishayele ucingo la studio ku 011 714 6918 noma uzame ku 714 6919. You can also send us an email to consumer@sabc.co.za. Catch us on Facebook and Twitter. Ungathivu siyabuya manje. Sinamukele futhi babukeli asiqhubeke ngenkulumo yethu ebhekene nezinguquko ezenziwe kuhlelo lisiza labo abangakwazi ukumelana nezikweletu zabo i-debt review process. My studio guests are YilungeloLakho from the National Credit Regulator, sibe nayo but Elias Shamatla yena uphuma kwa National Debt Mediation Association. For your views, questions, noma ama comments, please call us live ku 714 6918 noma 714 6919. Ungasithumela ne-email ku consumer@sabc.co.za. Like us on Facebook, Yilungelo, as well as on Twitter @Yilungelo. Now, Siskidi, Asian Pambili, in your own experiences, what causes consumers to get this far in debt?
Ho na le mabaka mantsi a leng hore one could find themselves over indebted. E ka no ba ile ho fetoga ga seemo sa ka mo lapeng. One could be going through a divorce, over retrenchment ko mmerekong or ko mmerekong ba hafula tšhelete e leng hore no e kreya, then that means hore you won't be able to pay tšhelete no e patela before. So ho na le mabaka mantsi, ho na le batho ba leng hore ba rata bophelo ba luxury, that as well le yona it leads to over indebted. So ho na le mabaka mantsi, but a mantsi re boneng ke issue ya retrenchment. I mean, we ratseba hore re tswa ko recessioning, batho ba bantsi ba dutse gae, and then lead divorce if nele lebeletse income ya batho ba
Two people,
joining ke
yeah.
motho e one. So ho na le mabaka mantsi a dirang hore batho ba ipone ba le over indebted.
Okay, and then but Elias, how would you advise consumers is over indebted due to reasons? How would you advise them to now handle their debt situation?
First thing, you know when you are going to default. So, approach a credit provider. Let's say, for example, on a problem, you have car installments. Approach the credit provider or financing. I've got death in the family. I won't be able to pay the installment this month. Can I pay the reduced installment, or can you give me payment break? Okay, next month. If you're a lady, you're going on maternity leave. Credit provider, I'm going on maternity leave for 4 months. I don't have benefits. I don't know UIF. So to go payment break, payment holiday for 4 months.
Do they ever give Loyoshwele, like, let's be really honest, do they ever give you that amnesty?
That's what we do. We help consumers with. We see it on
let's to Anonymous. Anonymous, siyakwamukela YilungeloLakho.
Yebo, sawubona kunjani?
Siyaphila bhuti wami, sicela usibuze umbuzo noma ubeke umbono.
Ngisacela ukubuza la debt review, ngangena ku debt review last year. So inkinga engihlangabezana, we receive a call from kuma creditors every day, and into engifuna ukuyibuza futhi enye. If niya ngiyochecka i-statement la ku debt counselor yami ku Oxygen, ngiyasithola ngibonisa ukuthi cha bayakhokha, kodwa ke ama-SMS engiwatholayo from kuma creditors ajeke ukuthi imali iyakhuphuka kunokuthi yehle, manje angazi ukuthi kuphi kumele ngikwenze.
Okay, but siyabonga, sicela ulalele kumabonakude wakho. Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, ki problem eri nan le yona, how you under debt review, batho ba ba kolotang ka moka ba tseba under debt review, and ho na le ba leng hore ba sa tswela pele, you know, calling consumers hore re nyaka tšhelete. Mara se moreki a santse ra se tsebe ke hore ha kreya call from a credit provider a le under debt review, o ska dumela ho enter into any agreement le credit provider because you are under debt review. So se o ka se dira ko contact debt counselor ya immediately hore ABSA or whoever credit provider in tshetse morao mara ke under debt review. So the consumers, they need to know debt review ya ba protector. It protects
from
them from any legal action. So what's important ke hore ha ba le under debt review ba maintain the payment. So if a debt counselor are go wena o tlo patela 3,000, it's of paramount importance for the consumer hore ba patele that payment, because if they default, the credit provider le bona ba tlo ba le right at a certain point hore ba terminated that arrangement at debt review, and then they will enforce legal steps.
Okay, Raymond from KZN, siyakwamukela YilungeloLakho.
Sanibonani.
Siyabonga bhuti, sicela usibuze umbuzo noma ubeke umbono.
Umbuzo. Yes.
Yebo bhuti, qhubeka nombuzo.
Okay, ngangena ku debt review ngo 2010, right?
Yebo.
Ngafike ngikhokha kuthe ngo 2012 last year. Ngayithola imali eyisamba. Ngahamba ngakhokha lezi ukuthi ngangena. Right?
Yebo bhuti.
Okay, manje mase ngiya ku debt counselor yami ngithi ngicela nje ikhiphe ngophela sengikhokheli. Ngithi manje ngeke fathe kule nkantolo fakhola bamelo of 4,000 rand zonke lento lezi. Kanti kwenzaje kwaqale nabaza ngikhokhe imali engako ukuthi ngingene kubona.
Okay, siyabonga bhuti, sicela ulalele kumabonakude.
Thank you, man.
Do you want to answer there, bhuti?
I didn't get
Giddy. He went and he paid up his credit, he got some money, but he's still getting statements that are demanding that he needs to settle his installments. But he said from credit providers, yeah. He says he got a lump, went and settled what he could. Yeah.
Yeah, Cecilia Mutloko, how under debt review if upatala everything. debt counsellor santse a khopele what we call settlement letters, you know, paid up amounts.
Okay.
Proving hore ka nnete ha o sa kolota anything. So ho botlhokwa hore a boele back to debt counsellor a check hore we la kry di settlement tseo. Although hona le valid variances in between, mara those things they need to be settled before a debt counsellor can let a consumer go. How under debt review, if upatela all your debts only under debt review, debt counsellor santse a issue a clearance certificate.
Okay.
Now clearance certificate, it indicates hore upatetse dikoloto tsa hao ne di le under debt review. So hona le phapano between who withdraw in the middle of debt review, who create clearance certificate, how patetse everything.
Oh, okay.
So hona le different.
Okay.
So mara say advising kam fa yona kora boele ko debt counsellor hai just for the debt counsellor hore a follow up le credit provider a bone hore bothata bo kae.
Okay. Tembi from KZN sakwamukela.
Yebo sisenibani.
Siyaphila sisiwami sicela sibuze umbuzo nombeka umbono.
Mina nginenkinga la i-medical aid kodwa eyami inkinga ngathola ukuthi musho ukuthi ingane neyo debt esibhedlela yathola ama-twins wathi mayithola ama-twins kwaba u-89,000 so ngayihambela leyo case leyo kwaze kwatholakala ukuthi i-medical aid yayibhadala so ngase ngifakwa abameli labo basebefake imali engango-25,000 leyo mali leyo sekufanele ukuthi ibhadalwe yini so ngicela i-advice ukuthi esimeni esikanjalo wenze njalo mhlambe ngoba iyangivimba lento isiyi-judgment manje uma ngithi ngifuna ukwenza noma yini iyangivimba.
Okay, siyabonga. Do you want to take that one, Siskidi?
Yeah,
another problem, I suppose.
Ho ya ka National Credit Act hona le se re se bitsang credit agreements and incidental credit agreements. Credit agreement ke ha o ya ko bankeng o nyaka sekoloto ba tlo botsa hore sekoloto se tlo costa this much, interest rate ya ho tlo ba so, initiation fee tlo ba so. Now incidental credit agreement ke agreement e leng hore initially ne se sekoloto, like things like your medical aid or cell phone, you know, it's a service provided. Mara if as a consumer u defaulter o sa patele, now the person who feeling a rendering service can go ahead because you didn't pay accordingly, so they can go ahead for but that is what we call incidental credit agreement. So in the beginning nesi credit agreement ne barendara service asanzura patele mafelo khwedi na khwedi e fela o palla ko patela, so it means payment iba overdue, so then it becomes an incidental credit agreement and honali interest rate eba charge. And unfortunately but they refer to the lawyer to do collection on their behalf.
Yes, that's why they want
and the lawyer is one of the dinali charges sabana tebadi edang to that.
Okay, all right, we'll go into more detail after the break. For now, let's take another very quick ad break. Ungaindawo mbukeli siyabuya khona manje. Stream at sabc.co.za, noma usithinte ku Facebook noma ku Twitter. Okay, so Skidi, let's go. Let's take this forward. Let's talk about specifically the complaints that you're taking over from the other associations.
The complaints they already taken over. The complaints on debt counseling related matters. If consumer mhlomongwe ay happy ka debt counselor, hona le dintho tse leng hore ba di understand. What's important, consumers want to tsebe debt counseling process, because if ba tseba the process, they'll be able to identify dintho tse di sa tsamayeng alright ka pela. And if they identify those, we advise them hore ba bolele di debt counselor tsa bona pele, and if haba kwani, then they can refer the complaints through to NCR. So the complaint is about debt counselor, maybe as I explain the process,
or even those money is getting lost in between places and everything else.
It's not being distributed. Those are the type of complaints that we receive.
Okay, Anonymous from KZN sakwamukela. Anonymous, welcome to YilungeloLakho. Okay, we've lost Anonymous. Is there anything you want to add about Elias?
Yeah, happy about if credit provider follow the process, especially about passing under debt review. Those cases about for example, include how you bank or even credit card or any type of a debt. You want to make a payment arrangement, but you can only get as far as the call center. You can't go beyond that. You can come to us to help you with the arrangements.
Okay.
But if phone, SMS line,
please go ahead and give us those details.
Our phone number is 086 111 6362 086 111 6362. Rumela email to info@ndma.org.za.
Okay.
Baka check our website www.ndma.org.za.
Okay. Now, Siskidi, we've got Anonymous back on the line. Anonymous, YilungeloLakho.
Yebo kunjani?
Siyaphila siswami, sicela usibuze umbuzo nombeka umbono.
Ngicela ukubuza umbuzo ngangena kwi-debt review ngo-2010. Badonsa kuthe uma kuzophela lo nyaka ophelile bangasadonsa kodwa imali ayikaze ingabikho kwibhenki yami kuze kube manje abadonsi and angisazi kwenzakalani noma mhlambe angisa-understand ukuthi and umuntu okhona angazi ukuthi angazi ngizophinde ngimtholephi lo muntu oyangenzelile ngoba wafika umuntu lasebenzela khona wathi uzothatha izinto asubmitted ebhenki into engangiyenza via i-fax babengithumelela ama-forms ngiphinde ngi-faxe back manje angazi ukuthi ngizoyakubani laphi.
Okay, all right. Siyabonga sisi, sicela umamele kumabona ukuthi Siskidi.
These are some of the complaints to already receiving. Okrelo consumer a khone ukra debt counselor high because some debt counselors batlohela practice without notifying even us as the NCR. So I like the fact that aware hore wa patel chelete ha isa hore. So this is someone who's informed. So aka phonela NCR, our number is 0860 627 627 or aka rumela complaint high through to DC complaints with an S at ncr.org.za or aka check ako website ya rena, it's www.ncr.org.za. So aka phone through and then rena re tla khona hore re zame what we can to trace a debt counselor. Has a great debt counselor re tla mofa a list of other debt counselors that can assist her.
Okay, all right.
And kubalekile ukuthi athumela ama proof of payments to NCR.
Okay.
Because NCR, what they're going to do, they're going to talk to credit providers to say, the consumer ukokile. Here's the proof of payments.
Yes.
Can you please pen the legal action that you may have taken or to stop the termination if you were about to terminate the debt review application.
All right, okay. And now let's talk about, with the new proposed credit amnesty, Siskidi, do you feel that it's going to alleviate some of your problems, or do you still see, Ilona, your proposed helping with the debt review systems? Do you still feel it necessary?
If you look at listed credit bureau, I'll talk about isolated cases. Student ukrea loan and then you are unable to pay. You complete your degree or qualification and then ukrea ba listile. And some employers, certain jobs they need you to credit record clean.
Yeah.
So now already you qualification now, but because not a school loan that you are unable to pay, you are listed go credit bureau. So for such cases, I mean, those are consumers by where they are listed, but it's not because they were just sitting and not paying their debts. But and we encouraging, I mean, it affects the as I say, some companies you need to be clear. So the credit amnesty, it will tusha, in situations like that. So it will look, it will not be a blanket approach. It will not apply to everyone. But obviously, what cases they really deserve the amnesty.
But people still need to go out there and actually follow up on their debt review process if they're under debt review.
Yeah, and those who can make arrangements if you are not under debt review, make proper arrangements with credit providers, because some credit providers are very lenient. Let's say, for example, you have got a judgment. Okay, but now you can't find a job, you can't get promotion because you have judgment if you work in a financial institution. What happens is that they can consent to rescission of judgment. Okay, because you have been paying us religiously for the past 6 months. Rofa consent to court will apply a rescission of judgment, even don't talk a lot.
Okay. And how does that work, Siskid?
What I wanted to add, debt review. Debt review it to say you prevent listed defaults and judgment, because in the beginning we mentioned defectors but we were over-indebted.
Yes.
What we didn't mention is that there are indications, before you can be in that position. There are things that can say to you, open your eyes.
Exactly.
For instance, if you borrow money to pay someone else, if I borrow from you to pay Elias, it means there's a problem. What I get is not enough. So that's an indication ya hore ke na le problem. So that's why MCA it like a debt review hore should you be in that position, apply for debt counseling, because with debt counseling o tlo patala dikoloto tsa hao, although o tlo patala reduced payments ho ya ka what you can afford.
Okay.
So and if you do that, if you pay all under debt review, as I've mentioned, o tlo kry clearance certificate and everything e leng hore ne under your name, any adverse listing it will be expunged from your credit record.
Okay. So it's not true, Siskidi Guti, you still can't apply for credit long after your credit history has changed or your credit situation has changed if you've been on a debt review process?
You know, the main objective here at debt review is rehabilitation. We want to see consumers back in the credit market. So it's not true, because how pateti dikoloto are under debt review, o create clearance certificate, as I've said, but or remove information adverse listing, then you can go back. But with the hope ya hore o tlabe only more educated, you know, not to just apply for credit because it's been made available to you. Yeah.
Yes, but Elias.
To add on to that, consumers are aware hore some sort of waiting period after credit bureau how it profile how it clear.
Okay.
In terms of credit scoring is very low because only under arrangement. So now, how apply a loan or facility at a credit provider? But how about affordability assessment by the credit scoring? It will how qualified because it's low. How you can pay.
Okay.
Without assistance.
All right.
Yeah, and just to add, Hore, how under debt review, it's not a listing, it's not a blacklisting.
Okay.
It's a flag, co-credit bureau. Hore, you know how under debt review, you cannot apply for credit because so it's not a blacklisting, it's a flag. And how that flag you have to see you are under debt review. So no one will know that you were ever under debt review.
Okay. And then when can you advise consumers to actually go into the debt review process?
Indication you know only problem. How credit private numbers to Saudi Arabia? It's one of an indication.
Yeah.
You know, credit letters of demand that, you know, account how it's in areas, repatel. So that's an indication. And the example, eki filang hore, you know, unyako patela A, ukolota A, uyako B to ukrechalete patela A. Now, when you have to pay B, you go to C. So it's going to be a spiral.
Yeah.
So that's an indication income you are unable to patela dikoloto. So that's when you need to approach a debt counselor. And what I need to advise the viewers until it's late. Because if you wait until it's late, other letters, we call it section 129. If a credit provider or rumela letter section 129, unfortunately, account under debt review because it's really legal enforcement. So it's important how in a situation with what you have right, you need to you either need to speak to your credit providers for the arrangements or you can contact the debt counselor and then I'll to say more.
Okay, good. Elias, you want to add?
And but they don't come right. Little credit providers how about the arrangement
to try and make arrangements. Yeah.
If they don't come right, they can come to NDMA.
Okay.
Because you can talk to the same credit providers and say, I was because she was living with her husband.
Will you allocate a debt counselor on their behalf?
No.
Okay. You recommend them to the right channels.
And there are no fees involved.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. Aspin as well as Mbugeli, please join us shortly after this. Sinamukele futhi babukela usabheke uhlelo Yilungelo Lakho, it's your right ukuzwakalisa imbono yenu sishayeleni ucingo la ku 011 714 6918 noma uzame ku 714 6919. Our email is consumer@sabc.co.za. Sikhona ku Facebook na ku Twitter. Siskidi Boni, when okay, let's start with an SMS before siqhubeka phambili. SMS, how long does your name stay on a list after a debt review process? I think Mr. Shilo earlier on, but if you can just explain once more.
Yeah, how under debt review, key flag, it's not a listing. And how it's under debt review, ikaba huru ujwa, usafeta ho patela dikoloto tsa hao, or le ha o feditse ho patela dikoloto tsa hao. Listing eo ha iduli. However you want out of debt review, debt counselor hona le di steps tsa santse ra di latele who make sure hore credit bureau ba kry information ya hore ha o sa le under debt review. And ha ba se no kry information eo ba tlo remove that listing from the credit bureau. So ideally ha ina re ka se rena le retention period, but as soon as credit bureau a receive tibisho ya hore you no longer under debt review, then but remove the listing.
Okay, so she must still go back to a debt counselor and ask them to forward all that information.
Yeah, and we have over 4 credit bureaus baba handling debt counseling information. Utlo kry le hore mohlomongwe 4 credit bureaus by removal and there's only one. So and then we need someone to follow it up. So I can well back to debt counselor to follow it up and see hore bothata bo ko kae.
Okay, but Elias, anything
Yeah,
to add?
that's true what she's saying.
Okay.
And another thing is that most abantu like intatuwa KZN loba bathu ukhokhile yonke into ekolotayo and then they still say there's something outstanding. What's important is that as a consumer ufanele ukuthi uthole ama settlement figures akho before cock.
Before call,
Yeah,
okay.
bawutshela ukuthi ukolota 10,000 rand, ukhokhe 10,000 rand because wena ucabanga ukuthi ukolota 10,000 rand athi bafakile interest ukolota 15,000
attorney
rand.
fees and all that. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll start a caller from Mpumalanga. Siyakwamukela kwilungelo lakho.
Yebo, unyazi.
Siyaphila bhuti wami, sicela isibuzo umbuzo.
Ngenyana lekhona la yimi sesama. Ngengaboleka imali African Bank sesi. Nangiboleka imali ngasolo ngibhadala ngaba nenkinga emsebenzi for 2 months. Ngakhona ukubabhadala ngathi ngaya kubhadala babuta inkinga yami ukuthi yini ngabachazela ukuthi yini inkinga le ukuze ngakhona ukubhadala 2 months. Kwachubeka solo ngibhadala sesi kwaphela emsebenzi. Ngaya ngabachaza ngathi angisasebenzi. Yabo. Bathi ngizame ngibabhadale imali engithola. Maye solo ngiyabhadala le mali ayeshi iyakhuphuka solo imali bayifuna maya ngivisisa ukuthi ifuna ngene njani.
Okay, siyabonga baba, sicela ulalele ngimabona kude wakho. Siskidi, once again he's now unemployed, so it's even more difficult for him to make payments, but he did arrange for payments and they never accepted it. The amount just keeps on getting higher. What can he do? He's unemployed.
Well, nka ba advise hore a contact the officer na hore re kgone bona what's actually happening. Ka National Credit Act hona le Section 8 lileng e leng hore it's there to protect consumers. E leng hore it makes sure hore the credit provider le ha ukolota interest e ba charging it does not exceed tšhelete ba kolotang yon. So the reason why I romela ko NCR so that we can see hore di charges e leng hore ba mo charge tsona are they in line with the NCA now, because hona le section e leng hore it protects the consumer hore they don't end up paying forever.
Unemployed as well.
Well, if you are unemployed, it's unfortunate because ukolotile tšhelete di credit provider di nyaka tšhelete yon. But what's important is how dira arrangements le bona. Don't promise them tšhelete le hore ka se afford. If ba re ba nyaka 300 una le 150.
Okay,
una le 150 you can only pay that.
All right, let's take Maki from Gauteng. Sis Maki, welcome to YilungeloLakho.
Le kae mama?
Siyaphila siswami, sicela sibuze umbuzo noma ubeka umbono.
Okay, ke kopa go tsapotsa.
Okay sis.
Yeah, le nna ke na le problem ne ke le ka etsa di arrangement le show gore ke tla kgona go patala certain amount, then ke entse ka January ka bo tsolo ke fela ke ntse ke patala certain amount, ntse ke patala that certain amount since from January and ha kgwedi immediately ha kgwedi fela, so but tsolo tsa ka ntse ke re se tshewe se ya hodimo.
Okay, siyabonga kakhulu sis Mike.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want to add?
Yeah, ntwe salang kore how is arrangement? Ho tsona ke arrangement ya mofuta ofe? With a 3 months arrangement or 6 months arrangement or with a permanent arrangement? It must be understood, because if it was a temporary arrangement, 3 months, what you are saying is that I just want to cover interest for the next 3 months. Afterwards, I'm going to pay my installment plus that arrear amount that has been left behind. You understand? Yeah, that's another thing. And how into arrangement expiry after 3 months or 6 months, you need to give the credit providers your pay slip. Or your bank statement wa fe your living expenses, your income and expenditure ba bona hore ha ona next ha ba feel budget how. So now they can say, okay, there's no point of making a temporary arrangement with this
So
person.
you must be really transparent with your providers.
To cover to African bank as well, make a long-term arrangement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Skidi, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah,
quickly?
just to add, when you make arrangements, interest yona it's paid.
It's the same.
So it's important hore arrangement we dirang. It covers interest and capital. Capital ke tšhelete le hore we tsere initially.
Okay.
So if it covers only interest, or if it doesn't even cover interest, o tlo patala mara o tlo bona kgwedi ha e fela sekoloto se ya hodimo.
just getting
So it's
high.
important hore arrangement e le yona should really be to your advantage as a consumer. It cover things like interest. But once again, I advise the consumers hore if haba sure aba romele ko credit regulator so that re check hore section ene ke bolela ka yona interest hore the credit providers di charge accordingly.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mbugeli, nisixolele namhlanje sikhuluma isisuthu ngoba amagesi wethu akhuluma isisuthu e-studio. Sithemba ukuthi niyakhona ukuthi nis-understand. Nizobamba la nizokhona ukubamba khona. Kwamanje sisathatha i-final ad break. Ungayindawo Mbugeli. Sikwamukele Mbugeli, back to our final segment. Siqhubeke ngenkulumo yethu. Now Siskidi, the process, when is it going into effect?
It's effective immediately. Ha re bolela, so the consumers are advised hore ha bana le problem, the complaints or debt counseling ba di romele ko NCR. NCR e kreile mangwalo, we even met the association NDMA, Credit Ombudsman, le dikasa hore ba tlo refer all complaints to NCR.
Unresolved complaints, that is.
The complaints tena ba dila ka tsona ba di resolvile, but new ones are now going to be channeled to NCR. So as it is now, the complaints the hand like NCR.
Okay.
Okay. Ama complaints are debt review, statutory complaints, but those issues like payment arrangements, we still deal with.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And one thing that I wanted to highlight quickly is that every consumer must make sure that they've got a retrenchment policy or income protector for in case you lose your job.
Okay.
You can follow
it protects the, okay. All right, we're going to take Black Mamba on the line. Black Mamba, siyamukela on the line. Siyaphila bhuti wami, sicela usibuze umbuzo nombeka umbono.
Bengisafuna usizo lana ngoba ngeke ngaba nenkinga nami la.
Yebo.
And then inkinga yami ukuthi kunomuntu leka sebenzisa ID number yami. So lo muntu wami wathatha ikweletu wayenza yonke into, and then mina ni honest. And then lo muntu lo khona manje yonke into iwela ngakimi ukubona.
Yebo.
I-ID ithi mina oma i-profile ukuthi i-ID ithi mina. But now yena khona manje into ayenzile uthatha ikweletu manje wonke ama-debits ezakimi. So khona manje mina ngikhona ukuvula i-account whatever into engifuna ukuyenza. So now if labantu abahamba wenza khona ikweletu benzani bezakimi. Manje mina noma ngizama ukubasexela whatever ama-documents khona manje angikhona ukuthi kanjalo still basasenda ama letters.
Awubambe kanjalo but Black Mamba, Siskidi, do you want to say anything to him while he's still on the line?
Yeah, ukuthi ngimtshela ukuthi ufana ukuthi aye police station immediately.
Yeah.
Ayenze affidavit, actually avule case. Yeah, ukuthi batshontshe ID yakhe, bathatha isikoloto amagama akhe. Yeah. And then afterwards, aye to the credit providers. Abanikise a case number.
Okay.
Basothumela to fraud and forensic department yabo.
Okay. Ulalele Black Mamba.
Okay. By investigate. And then ngicela ukuthi asifonele NDMA sizomsiza ukuthi simuguide ukuthi ayenze kanjani. Asifonele sizomnika i-telephone number yethu.
Okay. Ungasicela usinikeze but inumber. Lalela number but Black Mamba nansi number izovela ku screen yezwa but.
Ngiyabonga.
Sibonga kakhulu ngombuzo wakho. Okay, and then to carry on now, what do consumers need to know about the new debt review process, Skidi? What are the new advantages, so to say?
As Kibuleti, the reason why we took over from all this association was to, as a regulator,
to monitor.
Yeah, so I think that's an advantage to the consumers. And once again, how to change it with regards to the debt review process.
Okay.
The only thing like the complaints they handle like NDMA, they are now being handled by NCR.
Okay.
So they will still get the same assistance. They will get the same assistance. It's just that it is now done by the NCR.
Okay. And all the other boards, they're not handling anything. As you said, as you mentioned when we started, it was a referral. So they were referring some, I think it might confuse people if you're taking over all of them or just some of the referrals. Please explain there.
This is with regards to debt counseling related complaints.
Okay.
But I also need to mention, NCR, we don't only deal with debt counseling complaints. Any complaints, it's a credit agreement, because our mandate is to regulate the credit industry. Even agreements that necessarily do not fall under debt review. If you're not sure of the interest rate that they charge, because according to the NCA, certain interest, the maximum rates that a credit provider can charge depending on a credit agreement. So if at any point consumers are not sure or they are overcharged, the regulator is there to assist. So we don't only handle debt counseling complaints, but the arrangement that we had before with NDMA, DICASA and Credit Ombudsman was to assist with debt counseling complaints.
Okay.
But now all those are now going to be handled by us.
All right. And now let's wrap it up, guys. How can we change consumer behavior? You mentioned something very, very important, which our consumers don't know about.
Yeah, well, it's a problem but I think more than it being a behavior, even with us, when it comes to finances, it's not easy to come out and say, I've got a problem. So what we advise consumers, I've mentioned the indications that problem. So debt counseling is there to assist. As long as only source of income, a debt counselor can negotiate. So we're saying to the consumers, don't wait up until it's too late. Yeah, so if you see those indications, stand up. And how a consumer under debt review, please make it your business the process so that you can identify it into and act immediately, because it's there to protect you. We believe an informed consumer is a protected one.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
You need to be informed. Don't say let that counselor relax. You still need to take charge.
Your final words, but Elias.
Be careful with plastic money. Those debit cards, credit cards. If you buy a loaf of bread, you have 7.99 and get credit card. How you pay back is 82 rand. So be careful of using that plastic money, because how you are shopping, also in a grocery list, also we end up with trolley with the things that you don't need. Yes.
Hayi ngebhadi sesifike emaphethelweni ohlelo lwethu lanamhlanje. Mbukeli sithanda ukubonga izivakashi zethu ngesikhathi sazo nolwazi abasiphe lona namhlanje. Sibonge nani babukele emakhanga ukuthi nibe nathi kuze kube manje. Sibonge nangemibuzo futhi nembono yenu. Please join my co-presenter Sisanda join us again next week Friday for another live consumer topic of the week. Ukuthola impinde ezinhlelo zethu. Please join us khona la kumahamba phambili SABC 1 Mzansi for show every Monday morning from 9:30 kuya ku 10:30. For myself, Alicia Ntombi and the entire dedicated team, it's goodbye. Nisale kahle.
Lakho